Hi everybody, my name is Chung, and today we're going to be looking at the Illusionary engine build. This is a melee build that aims to utilize the movement speed bonus that is granted by Illusionist to its maximum potential. Um, the secondary ability that we're looking at is whenever you cast Mirror Image, Slow Time, or Teleport, your movement speed is increased by 30% for 3 seconds. Um, there's actually another skill that does something similar, which is Diamond Skin Sleek Shell. Whenever you cast that, it gives you a 30% movement speed increase while the Diamond Skin is active. Um, Under normal circumstances, you can't really uh, chain these spells in such a way that the movement speed bonus is always up. In order for you to do that, you have to get sufficient cooldown reduction so that you can cast these spells in such a way that you can maintain the 30% movement speed bonus indefinitely. For me, I shoot for 40% or above cooldown reduction. The reason for this is because this will allow you to just use 3 of the 4 spells that I mentioned. Uh, that being Diamond Skin Sleek Shell, Slow Time, Teleport, and of course Mirror Image. The reason why I like using 3 instead of 4 is because it frees up a slot for armor or an additional attack skill if that's what you prefer. The main thing to note about this build is because it's a melee build, survivability is actually very important to this build. And in fact, because this build is the whole idea is speed, uh, the attack skills we're going to be using are also going to be skills that don't have any casting animation. This is to fall in line with the theme that you continuously move and at the same time being able to damage your mobs. So first we take a look at the skills. The skills that interact with Illusionist, the ones that I use, is Teleport and Slow Time. For Teleport, I like using Calamity because since this is a melee build, I find that being able to teleport into like the middle of a mob and have them all stunned at the same time, that works very well for me. Um, the second is Slow Time, Point of No Return again. Uh, the ability to stun, plus the protection it offers against, or not the protection, but the relative protection it offers by slowing down all the enemy projectiles. That's a very big plus since this is a melee build. But you can really use any rune that you wish for slow time. I don't like using mirror image because it's sort of you can't really control which direction it pushes you whenever you do the split. It may push you forward or it may push you backwards, and so to me that I just don't like the way that skill behaves. Um, the third skill that I use is Diamond Skin with the Sleek Shell. The reason why I use Sleek Shell instead of any of the other runes is because if you were to use Teleport, Slow Time, and Mirror Image, that would already consume 3 skills slots. Diamond Skin is a skill that's used in almost every single build, and there's actually no reason why you shouldn't have it. So if you put Diamond Skin in that list, then that's already 4 skill slots consumed. Meaning you only have 1 skill slot for an attack and 1 skill slot for an armor. Which, if you don't use an armor, that's actually really you're actually missing out a lot for not having an armor active. So I like to take away mirror image, and I like using diamond skin and using sleek shell so that I have 3 abilities that will maintain the movement speed increase as I move. That way I can use an armor and 2 attack skills. Uh, the armor that I use is Storm Armor Scramble. Uh, the reason for this is because the theme of this build is about speed and mobility. So since this is a melee build and since I'm going to be hit anyway, might as well make use of that mechanic and get the speed bonus with that. But for this isn't set in stone. You can really use any armor that you wish. The only requirement to this build is you have 3 spells that grant you 30% increased movement speed, and the the Illusionist talent plus 40% plus of cooldown reduction. The attack skills I use are Arcane Orb, the Arcane Orbit, and Explosive Blast Chain Reaction. The reason why I use these 2 skills is because the damage, the attacks follow me as I move, number 1. And number 2, I don't have to cast anything while I'm moving. These are one of the rare skills where there's no casting animation. And since this build is all about speed and mobility, it fits into this theme perfectly. Some of you might say that, oh, well, slow time has a casting animation. What I have to say to that is I guess 1 second that you would lose standing still and casting is made up by the teleport itself, which allows you to just reappear anywhere on the screen. The other passives, you actually have full freedom to use whichever you please, other than Illusionist, which is a must. I use Evocation because it gives a cooldown reduction of 20%. But if you have sufficient gear to get you 40%, you really don't need this. I am not at that point yet, so that's why I have this skill in use. The other skills are for survivability, Blur and Dominance. This is a melee build, so because you're going to be running into mobs, you're going to be getting hit a lot. So you need to be able to survive damage, at least until you can kill 2 or 3 mobs, so that you get a few stacks of Dominance shielding. Once you get a few stacks of Dominance shielding, it should allow you to stay alive pretty well. But first, I'm going to demonstrate how having 3 skills along with Illusionist will allow you to maintain the movement speed bonus indefinitely. So right now I have 25% movement speed from my equipment, and this is how fast I move without the bonuses. Now I'm going to show how fast I move with the bonuses. So as you can clearly see, with 40% cooldown reduction, 3 spells is all it takes to maintain this increased movement speed. One thing to keep in mind is that Sleek Shell isn't technically required for this build. Really, the only thing you need is Illusionist. The reason why I say this is because you technically don't need 3 spells to maintain the movement speed indefinitely. With sufficient cooldown reduction, you can actually get away with just having 2 skills that will allow you to maintain the movement speed. And I believe your gear does allow for that much cooldown reduction. Again, I'm not at that point yet, so I have to rely on 3. Now, we take a look at the equipment, and since this is a melee build, survivability is very important, because since you're going to be running into the thick of the mobs, you want to be able to survive a significant amount of hits. So for me, my all resists are, the lowest one is 1349. That gives about 79% resistance. Um, Another thing that you need is you need some way to refill your arcane power. Uh, this build isn't very heavy. Uh, it doesn't use a lot of arcane power because Diamond Skin, Slow Time, and Teleport don't use arcane power. You're really the only thing that uses arcane power is Arcane Orb and Explosive Blast. Unfortunately, when you use them both together, the total arcane power cost is 50, so that'll give you roughly 2 casts. So you need some way to refill your arcane power. So what I use is critical hits grants arcane power. I have 8. I think Blizzard nerfed this so that the high values that we used to see in the classic Diablo 3 doesn't show up anymore. So I think 4 is the most that you can get in any slot. And my critical chance is 43%. Again, it doesn't really matter too much. You just want to be able to make sure that you have enough arcane power so that you can use Arcane Orb and Explosive Blast in a reasonable manner. Another thing to note about Arcane Orbit and Explosive Blast, by the way, I used the Chain Reaction rune, is you don't have to spam these skills. Arcane Orb explodes 4 times before you have to refresh it again. And of course, Explosive Blast has a cooldown of 6 seconds, so you can't spam that anyway. So just remember that when you're using these attack skills, you don't want to go overboard with spamming these skills, because if you drain your arcane power too quickly, it won't you won't be able to refill it with critical hits, because that's your main way of recharging your arcane power. Some other things to note is as you're moving, the passive movement speed stays for 3 seconds. So you're going to have to remember to count to 3 every time so that you can refresh the movement speed. But I think if you've seen how this build works, you'll be able to notice that you're not moving at the speed that you should be, and you should be able to just cast one of the spells and get you to be under the influence of the 30% movement speed. The sequence in which you cast the 3 spells is semi-important. It doesn't really matter too much because you have such great mobility, but if you happen to be on a map that has a lot that is very narrow, like the Pandemonium Fortress, you want to be able to have at least the Diamond Skin Sleek Shell cooldown available to you. So ideally, you'd start off with Slow Time. It doesn't like not having it when you're in the middle of a battle doesn't really mean that much. The second one is Teleport, and the third one you want to use in the sequence is Diamond Skin. And then you just keep cycling over and over and over and over again. One thing to note is because this is a melee build, there is a very big likelihood that the primary skill of Illusionist is going to kick in, meaning you take more than 50% damage of your maximum life in 1 second. It's going to refresh the time on slow time. Sorry, it's going to refresh the cooldown on slow time and teleport. This is one thing to remember because it sort of gives you it's sort of semi-liberal in terms of how you can spam slow time and teleport. This is also the reason why I use Calamity instead of Wormhole. It's because it's semi-spammable with Illusionist and you being in melee range. Now I'll just take you through a run through just to show you how effective this build is. So this is Torment 1. Notice I'm getting a little bit of lag here. You'll have to excuse that. So this is how it works to kill an elite. So that was a short demonstration of how effective this build is. I'm now going to go into an area that has a lot of range mobs. This is just to demonstrate so that it's not you're not completely at the mercy of ranged units or range mobs. Sorry. So you see there's a massacre of 100 mobs because of your extreme speed and your extreme movement. You're able to chain massacres like this. This is one of the things you're going to be seeing a lot of, which is pretty unique to this build. So that was a demonstration of how this build works. Several times you can see that the Illusionist talent kicking in. Whenever I took more than 15% damage of my maximum life, that refreshed my slow time, and so that allowed me to semi-spam it along with teleport. When you saw me fighting the elite that had frozen the frozen crystals that spawn on the ground and cause frozen, teleport gave me sufficient mobility that I can just simply teleport out of it if I was stuck. It wasn't really necessary because of the extreme mobility and speed that I had anyway, so I could just get out of it without even having to worry about being trapped. Even Jailer doesn't do anything to this build because you have teleport. The it just, and even Waller itself, being walled in doesn't do anything because you can just simply teleport out of that also. The main thing to remember about this build is, number one, make sure you have sufficient survivability, and number two, make sure that your cooldown reduction is enough that you can use the skills that you want. The build itself is fairly flexible because the only thing that you really want is to be able to move under the 30% movement speed bonus. So if you can somehow manage it with like 2 skills, I think it might even be possible to get away with just having 1 skill. But that is, I believe, going to require like around 70 to 80% cooldown reduction, which I believe is, you're most likely going to be compromising in other areas. But if you can get your gear up to that point, by all means. And oh yes, one thing that I use is I use the highest ranking diamond to assist with the cooldown reduction. I believe in order to get away with only having 2 skills that grant you movement bonus, you need to have the flawless royal diamond socketed in your head slot. I'm not entirely sure, but it's just the way that cooldown reduction works. It's multiplicative, so having lots of small values isn't as good as having big values of cooldown reduction. So ideally you'd want to get like the biggest values that you can for cooldown reduction, so that you can get at least up to 40% and have at least 2 skills to use while you're running around. And in that previous demonstration, you also saw how effective having Arcane Orbit and Explosive Blast is. There's no casting animation to this, again, so I was able to just run around and not have to worry about being stuck in any one spot. Another thing to note is Scramble, the speed bonus also stacks with Illusionist and Sleek Shell. So this will grant you even more maneuverability as you take hits and as you start running around. I believe Scramble also works if you take hits under the influence of a shield. I'm not too sure about that, but it doesn't really matter too much because you have perpetual 30% increased movement speed anyway. So it's just going. It's it's you're just going from like extremely fast to like excessively fast. So uh, it's cool to look at. Saves you a lot of time because it'll allow you to zip through areas and do bounties really quickly. Uh, and the only drawback or the only weakness of this build is if you're, again, in a map that doesn't give you a lot of mobility. So like the Pandemonium Fortress, it's a very compact map. So this sort of movement this sort of build doesn't allow you to run around a lot. But do remember that you have teleport. So be sure to use that sparingly and use that at the right moments so that you can get in and out of problems. Um, there are two items that I'd like to mention, which I do not have, unfortunately. But this would make this build even better. The first is the Illusionary boots. Illusionary boots allow you to, I believe, run through enemies and not be obstructed by them. Uh, so this would be excessively beneficial to this build because it would actually solve a lot of the problems you would encounter when you when you're running maps that are very compact, and it prevents you from getting trapped at all. Since this build is all about running all over the place, uh, that fits perfectly with this build. The second one is Cosmic Strand, the one that gives you the teleport wormhole rune, which I believe would work very well with Calamity because you can spam it and you can get 2 extra casts out of it, and it'll allow you to stun a bigger group of people. Uh, Wormhole is the ultimate in teleport in terms of mobility, so just having that makes things very nice for you. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.